Well, thank you again for joining me this morning. Wanted to recap the 2024 legislative session, kind of your thoughts on Governor Landry coming in. You have a ruby red House, Senate, and now you have a governor that's also red. How much of that has been an impact, negatively or positively, for Louisianans this year?
Well, I don't know that we can make a judgment just yet on whether it's going to be a positive impact or a negative one. I'll say this, that while the governor didn't get a clean sweep of everything he wanted to get done, what he did get done was still pretty significant. I mean, you start with redistricting, and Louisiana gets a second majority black district in Congress. Probably doesn't mean much for at least another 2 years, but that one seat, when you talk about battle for control of the House, traditionally midterms mark a change in power because the public tends to get fed up with the party in power. So we'll see about that. Rolling back the age of adult criminal prosecution to 17, essentially undoing the John Bell Edwards reforms, is significant. Again, we'll see. I think it's going to be more costly for sheriffs and for the state correctional system to constitutionally house more 17-year-olds who will be treated and tried as adults. Probably more significant than anything, and we may not know at least for a couple years, is the tax policy overhaul, taking away income tax at a graduated level and installing a flat tax and increasing sales tax. That right away. I mean, it starts January 1st, so you'll start to feel that pinch a little bit more at the cash register. But will it lead, as Governor Landry and proponents have said, to more businesses coming to Louisiana, more jobs? Certainly the Meta announcement for the data processing center in Northeast Louisiana is very, very promising. But hiring there is not for another 5, 6 years. So in the meantime, I think, the real pressure for the governor is, will these short-term, really significant policy changes, how soon will we see things lead to prosperity in Louisiana and get us off the bottom of the lot of the list that we don't want to be at the bottom of?
And I think that's one thing that, Republicans in the House, Republicans in the Senate, really the majority of Louisianans wanted to try to get away from being at the bottom for most things. I remember speaking to Mike Johnson about this, Speaker pro tempore for the House, and he basically said, like, we're just tired of being at the bottom of everything. Like, he's, in his lifehood, in my lifetime, we've always been closer to the bottom of that. One thing you did mention that I thought was of importance was John Bell Edwards and, erasing some of the policies that he had, like putting 17-year-olds as minors and things of that nature. It seemed like a lot of reversing of those things when you look at how the Democratic Party was back then and looking at the Republican Party now. How much of that has been a big shift this year with Governor Landry coming in, bringing these new policies in, and really reshaping Louisiana?
I think they've really taken a low-hanging fruit approach because there was resounding support for doing that. Now, does that lead to better results? That's kind of the wait and see proposition. Proponents of more progressive handling of juvenile criminal justice will say, well, this explains why you need to invest in your public education system. This is why you need to invest in mental health, which has been a Republican-led initiative for the most part. There's been, along with this move towards, in central Louisiana, down in Acadiana and the river parishes, efforts to expand juvenile criminal justice housing. There's also sort of a corresponding space saying, okay, well, if we're going to be housing these kids, then constitutionally there are these things we have to do, one of them being ensuring that they receive proper mental health care. So at least there's the early onset of, okay, let's assess the need. What time will tell is whether or not there's going to be funding that supports this. And I think, lo and behold, we're kind of waiting to see if it's same old with K through 12 funding. There is a greater emphasis on early education as well. And that was kind of a very tooth and nail fought out scenario in the legislature, which they ultimately retained the number of early education seats that they had. But I think there's growing agreement that there's more that's needed to start at the very latest at 3 years old, preparing kids for the K through 12 system. They've looked at other states. Mississippi is already starting to make up strides from having done that. And I think Louisiana's, hopefully, I think a lot of people would say, starting to figure out that, okay, yeah, this is where our money needs to go in early education to set ourselves up for success down the road.
Absolutely. So one big thing that we've obviously been a part of was redistricting with Congressional District 6. Congressman-elect Cleo Fields will take over on Friday, and then the next 119th Congress will take over. When you look at Louisiana and their supermajority, right, and then you look at Congress, how they're going to have a very slim majority in Republicans, how much of Cleo's impact will shape not only Louisiana, but Congress if he's able to get some of these policies off the ground, since he does have that experience from, mid 90s being in Congress?
Yeah, I think for him at least, there's a bit of familiarity. Now, a lot's changed in the almost 30 years that he's been there. He's obviously, in the minority party with a Republican in charge of all three branches of government, if you want to put it that way. So I think he can. He's not going to be a guy, and he never really has been, at least at the Washington level, of bringing about policy change. However, like you're saying, Colin, he does bring a bit more experience to the table. I think he's going to be someone that's sort of a coalition builder, and really not just for Fields, but Troy Carter in the second district, for all Democrats. I think for any of their initiatives, there's going to have to be obviously a coalition that has to be built. And I think Cleo Fields is close enough to the middle that he won't throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to wanting to get things done for that district. I think what's probably going to be more telling will be the outcome of the case that challenges whether or not that sixth district was a race-based gerrymander. And that's something we're going to see unfold at some point in 2025 before the Supreme Court.
Gotcha. And one final thing for you. What's going to be the biggest thing going into 2025 that the legislature is going to tackle right away? I know we've talked about insurance, we've talked about different things of that nature, but what's the big key thing from your perspective?
I think I would have gone with insurance first and foremost, because we've talked about it, but I don't know necessarily that anyone's come up with a fix that's really going to steer the market. And obviously, you're beholden to Mother Nature to a large extent. One of the things I'm kind of eager to see is, what does education policy look like? What will Cade Brumley steer down in a Republican Jeff Landry dominated Board of Elementary and Secondary Education hand down that would lift Louisiana from the bottom of those lists that we talked about? It seems as that the stars are aligned for whatever change they want, and I think we've already seen the legislature move in that direction more with culture than curriculum. But really now, I think with Brumley and a Republican-dominated legislature, a governor that's in tune with those folks, whether they're going to just really implode a lot of the infrastructure, Common Core and such, and what do they replace it with that could make significant strides. I'm really eager to see how that all shakes out.